Well, hello and welcome to our SpeechCo presentation about creative writing fundamentals. SpeechCo specializes in communications. We want to help people express themselves through public speaking, and also, fundamentally to figure out what to say in public speaking, we work on creative writing. So my name is Bain. I'm Dr. Bain Chin. I graduated from MIT to the year 2000, and I created this creative writing course. So let me just tell you a little bit about the creative writing course that we have here at SpeechCo. So let's say you're given this task to explain what is love. So I'm expecting the general audience to be a very wide cross-section of the population, from little kids to grandmothers. So I'm not talking about, young people and their lust. This is a very general question. So, let me give you, my humble take on this, just one little aspect of it, how to express that. So, love is giving. This is my opinion. Okay? Love is that which you give your time. But that doesn't really explain what it is. People don't get that until they get an example. So let me go back to that. So the good example is, when a mother shows her love, she does that by cooking a meal for her family and, cooking something wonderful for everybody to eat. And the children express their love by sitting down and eating her food. And the concept is we share our time together, and that's our love. So this concept of love, I didn't realize it, but it was a long time ago in school that we learned this. So I got introduced to this concept from this little book called The Little Prince. It's a valuable little book. People think it's a children's book, but it's full of really important things that adults and everybody should know. So this little prince lives on an asteroid. And one day, from the cosmic wind, a seed came along and a rose grew on his little asteroid. And the little prince liked the rose. And he watered it and talked to it and took the weeds out and protected it from the cold. And years later, when he traveled around, he found many other roses, thousands of other roses, that looks just like his rose. But there was only one rose. And it was time, it is the time you wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important, his friend told him. It is this concept of time that's important. And in school, back then, we don't really realize it, but the teachers want you to learn how to express yourself through beautiful words. In this book is this little passage, that I remember. Is the most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or touched. They're felt with the heart. In school, they teach you to use good English. But unfortunately, the youth of today, they write like this. So, take a moment to think, can you make that out? Is that beautiful English? It is English, just not what we expect in school. This is what the kids write now. And this is actually the 10 Commandments from the Bible, just written in a modern, with the phones. So our youth doesn't really get the proper practice that they should, So that's why it's important for them to take a creative writing course so they can actually have a chance to write and learn how to write properly. Before I, explain the course, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, I have a PhD from MIT, but I'm also an immigrant. When I got to Canada years ago, my parents had not much for me because we were immigrants. They gave us, a roof over our heads, 3 meals a day, and a TV. And, all those things that your kids nowadays, have the privilege to go to, all the lessons and extracurriculars. We had none of that. But what they did give me I think I'm most grateful for was my parents gave me the freedom to succeed or fail. And I wanted to succeed. So in high school, I joined every activity I could because, it was possible. Just because it was possible. I had to learn to manage my time, but I joined everything I could, squeezed in every little after-class activity that I could. I did music, band, sports, chess club, science club, junior achievement, and so on and so forth. In the summertime, I would go to camp, get a part-time job, volunteer. But one of the things I did when I was in school was I actually did creative writing. And I wrote for publication. And I think that helped me later on. When I got to U of T, for my 4 years when I was doing my undergrad there, every year I participated in a research project. And I got a chance to really know most of the professors at U of T in the chemistry department. And when I finished, the professor said to me, Bain, you've been here and you've known all of us. You can't stay here if you're going to continue your education. You have to leave. And luckily for me, I think most importantly for me, I got a recommendation or multiple recommendation letters from the professors that allowed me to get into MIT. And so from our chemistry department, the three of us, ranked top 1, 2, 3 from the U of T chemistry department, we all went to MIT together. And at MIT, I had a chance to study in chemistry and in the chemical engineering departments. Luckily, I went there on full scholarship, so I didn't have to pay for all that. It's really expensive. But I graduated in the year 2000 with my PhD. But I'll just briefly share with you, just maybe one or two things about MIT that's really amazing. One of the things I remember going to was one of the lectures at MIT given by an astronaut that came back from NASA. These NASA guys, actually a lot of them are actually MIT graduates. So I found out that, one of the famous astronauts, this guy, he's the second man on the moon, was an MIT graduate. And they made Buzz Lightyear, in Buzz Aldrin's likeness. His partner, who was the first man on the moon, made one of the most famous speeches in history. So, on the way to the moon, Neil Armstrong created this speech. That's one small step for man, a giant leap for mankind. It took him 3 days to craft this speech. And one thing we learn now is that all great speeches are crafted. It's just not something that spontaneously happened. So Neil Armstrong took his time and figured out one of the most memorable one-liners in history. So, I think creative writing is very important, and I think that ties into this idea. And I think when I look back to my career in school, writing was very essential. When I look back how much writing I had done by the time I got into that, writing the entrance essay for MIT. In school, I had already been writing in my diaries and journals, essays for assignments. I had written short stories for publication, wrote opinion essays for the school newspaper, and I had written love letters and poems to my fiancée before I got a chance to write the entrance essay. In such an essay, they ask you, why do you want to come to MIT? But actually, that's not the real question. The real question is, why do we, MIT, want you at MIT? So knowing what answer to write about is more important than what you're going to say. Knowing what answer to answer is the most important challenge in writing. And then later on, I was in the pharmaceutical industry. I wrote, things like I had to write my PhD thesis, and then I went on to write procedures for manufacturing medicines, which the government had to audit. And one of the things that that's really rewarding now is I get to write recommendation letters for students. And even though I say that writing is really important, reading is essential. when I was in high school, I figured out a couple of things. A couple of things bothered me in high school. I was so busy reading what the teachers had given me to read, the classics like Shakespeare's and Dickens and Mark Twain. I really didn't have much time to read other things. But I knew there were other things out there that I should read, but I didn't have time for. And I knew that other people were talking about some popular literature that I really did not get exposed to. But there was one other thing that I learned from my teachers that I know as an immigrant I had a problem with. As an immigrant from China, I had never seen the Bible. And there's a lot of things in English literature that refers from the Bible. So one summer I just sat down, when I had time, sat down and read both Bibles. Once I did that, I realized, wow, there's so much reference made to things in the Bible. So that's the one book that I recommend for everybody, whether you're a Christian or not. Read the Bible and it will allow you to figure out what do they say in the books. Because in Canada, the population is 85% Christian. So as immigrants, we're at a disadvantage. But, when I graduated and I had more time, I actually went back to read the popular literature. And I found out that this is what I was missing. All those great books eventually became great movies. And these are all authors that are on the New York Times bestseller list. So if you have time, just go through the New York Times bestseller list and go through the books. They're all amazing. So in school, writing skills are really important. So you're going to need the skills to write book reports, essays, write in journals, write your assignments, do your projects, and get ready for your presentations. And at SpeechCo, we help students, excel at public speaking and writing. And if you want to check out the materials on public speaking, you should check the link in the description below. So in creative writing, students, go through a course of development. They go through, what I think are 3 stages. At the beginning, when they first come into the course, they don't know what to write. They really, they don't know what the starting point is. When they progress further on, they'll give you some information, which is, it's passable. But when you get good at it, then you're able to tell tantalizing stories that make people think and ask, what happened to him? What happens next? That's really good writing, when people are engaged. So give me an example. Students are going to go back to school. As a parent, you're going to ask them, what happened at school today? And the usual answer is stuff. That's stage 1. They don't know what you're asking. Stage 2, they get better at it, because you're going to bug them with what happened at school today, so they have to give you some kind of answer, right? So they're going to say, we had a substitute teacher, and we watched the video. That's got information in it. But do you know what they actually said to you in that statement? This means, I don't have any homework, so don't bother me and let me play video games. And in stage 3, they really give you details. Like, this is an actual quote from a student. The music teacher for the school musical is terrible. She plays favorite with the drama kids because they're the popular kids. She treats us musicians like dumb little kids. She was really condescending to me. I really question why I signed up for this. That is good. That's engaging. That's a lot of information. And this student, had quite a bit of practice. So in this course, the students will benefit in improving their writing, improving their reading and comprehension. They learn what to write. And then with feedback, they learn what to look for when they read, because it feeds back, they figure out how they write themselves, and then they figure out what people are writing. It helps them to read. And in the end, they learn how to write better. So, in my view, for someone to improve themselves, here's a couple of quotes. If you want to make small changes, you change the way you do things. But if you want to make big changes, what you need to do is change the way you see the world. When you change your perspective, big things happen. So that's one thing I hope, to share with the students, to give them a different perspective and share with them this wealth of literature that's out there that's really, really fun and engaging for them to read and learn from. So the curriculum that we teach, in our classes, that we do writing every class and they get feedback. We work on short stories, we do reading analysis, we work on essays and reports, and we work on writing their own stories. So we will work on essays and book reports. They're going to do it by example. They need to plan their essays and reports, figure out how to make their arguments, express their interests, put in a good introduction and conclusion, and figure out what the teachers look for. This is how you figure out, you need to figure this out to get a good mark. Answer the question, basically. So in a typical class, we study a short story. First we do some reading, they also get some feedback from their previous homework. We go in and analyze the story, we break it down into the 5 W's, who, where, and when, the plot, and the theme of the story, the why, the most important part. And then when we figure that out, the students write their own story, inspired by the story that they have learned that day. As an example, we sit in class and we discuss what we learned. And when they work on their short stories, they've got to work on their vocabulary, their grammar, their writing style. And they take the things that they have learned from the story, they have to learn, to include in their own story the 5 W's, plot and character, different perspectives, whether you want to write from a he or she or from an I point of view. They need to learn to paint with words. Writing is an art. You need to be able to paint the background, the action, paint with dialogue, and also express the emotions in a piece of writing. So the students they don't think the writing part's that hard because they're inspired by the story they read that day. They feel it's easy to actually write their own story. So the skills we try to develop in the kids is that they need to be able to describe things, the people, the places, feelings, the action, show it through dialogue. The one thing I like to keep it simple, I try to teach the KISS method. Keep it simple and short. Make sure it's relevant. Keep the 5 W's so people actually get a clue of what you're talking about. And the reward for the hard work, someone said that, working on mastering something takes about 10,000 hours. Writing is like riding a bike. You need to work at it, not just read. If you just read, you can't write yet. You need to work at it like you do practicing on a bike. But if you put the hard work in, the results are not just in your report card. The results will last you a lifetime. So I want to just give you a couple of examples and some feedback. In a typical test, your student will go in and write a couple of pages, of something. Typically, what I see in the students when I get them, when they first join my class, by the time they get to the bottom of the first page, some of them are complaining, "Ow, my hand hurts," because they haven't been writing, no practice. The second page is a struggle when their hands already hurt. Mentally, they're struggling already. One of the students, David, said that he learned a lot, it improved his writing. It shows in his schoolwork. He gets better marks for writing assignments. One of the students we had in a writing camp was Jessica. She was a volunteer, and her younger brother Jesse was in the class. She observed that he wrote so much better in class that they could not get him to write anything at home. So even his handwriting was better. So it's just a matter of getting kids, feeling comfortable and inspired to write, no judgment, and help them, give them feedback. And they have fun with it. And lastly, I'll give you a little bit of parent feedback. This is an example of Sydney. Sydney was very excited to be in this class, and then when she read this story called The Paper Menagerie, she went home and she was so excited. Mom, you gotta read this story. It's amazing. You'll love it. Mom did read it, and this story is amazing, and it brought tears to Mom's eyes. And so now Mom is recommending that other people should read this story. So I think this is an example of love. Sydney shared with her mom. They shared a moment together, and I think that is love. And I love what I do. I love teaching. I love working with young people. I've been working with young people, ever since I was a graduate student at MIT, when I was living by myself in Boston. I didn't have my family with me, and that was before I got married. So I went to the Big Brothers Association, and I became a big brother, and I had a little brother from Boston. So, I've been working with youth pretty much all my life, and it's one of the things I really, really feel, it's my passion to do. And what I want to do is share with them, this wealth of experience, and the literature that they can get access to. I want to share with them, and help them learn how to write better, how to communicate better. Thank you for your time.